There's been a lot of news in the beef sector the last 3 or 4 weeks. Trump came out today and lifted a 90-day tariff on ground beef coming from Argentina. A tariff lift is on the first 300,000 pounds of ground beef coming in from Argentina, which is about 18 days worth of consumption, on average, how much we sell in America and consume. So it is a decent little chunk, that's a couple weeks worth of kill on the ground beef side. To price that beef at 25% under the market value for our, domestically grown meat. And the biggest problem I see with importing meat is not only, food safety. I believe American grown meat is the safest, best protein anybody consume in the world. It's a premium product. And
do not feel bad. Don't you feel bad for the cattle ranchers that are trying to sell you meat, especially, very specifically, not especially, very specifically the ones who voted for Donald J. Trump. Let them call Donald Trump for help. Let them call Elon Musk. I assure you that last year, before they were suffering, they were laughing away while ICE was dragging people off the street and shooting them in their face. All of what's happening right now, including the horses being rounded up and slaughtered, was part of Project 2025, is part of Project 2025. It is. Let me show you. In the 900-page PDF of Project 2025, it says, Congress must enact laws permitting the Bureau of Land Management, otherwise known as BLM for them, to dispose humanely of these animals. They're talking about wild horses. And before anybody tries to come at me with, are you really just going to let your fellow Americans starve and have them shut down their business because of how they voted? Yes, we are, because that vote counted for something. My actual true patriot, fellow American, would never sell me out to the government because they figured they were under the incorrect assumption that they could have the same seat at the table as Donald Trump. Starve. Let them starve. Only buy from blue ranchers if they even exist at this point. Let them starve. And that's it.
Hey, good morning, guys. Sean here. I'm not sure about the rest of you, but as a cattle farmer, cattle producer, or cattle rancher, whatever title you want to give us, I can't believe that President Trump and Secretary Rollins just kicked us in the teeth yesterday by saying that they're going to import foreign beef here into the United States. This plan that he's actually talking about, you can go and look for yourself. The Cattlemen Association at the national level, every state is coming out totally against it. And it's 100% because it's not going to have any real effect on prices of beef in the grocery store. The reality of it is the packers control everything. Until we address the 4 packers and how they control everything, we're doing absolutely nothing. Mr. President, your decision is going to run ranchers like myself and others. We don't make any difference. We big or small. You're going to run us out of business, and we will never, ever be able to rebuild the herd. Right now, as everyone knows, the herd is the smallest it's ever been. But with this action for the next 90 days, what it's doing is pushing down the price of beef that we sell to the sale barn that ultimately goes to your table. This action that the president is doing is not doing anything to help the American people. He thinks it is. I wish he would listen to the Cattlemen Association and others that understand agriculture, because the reality of it is right now, what this is happening to us is straight up bush. There's no other way to do it. So I just want to clearly put out there, I'm totally against it. I'm going to fight every day for our farmers, fight every day for our ranchers, because somebody got to get to DC that understand agriculture and going to stand with agriculture. Because right now, if we continue on this path, we're going to run agriculture and run cattlemen completely out of business. Guys, thank you for all your support. Look forward to talking to you out there on the trail. But this, I couldn't even sleep last night. I'm just out here this morning checking on the cows. But I couldn't believe that the president would actually do this. So with that, I'll see you. I got it off my chest. I look forward to seeing you somewhere today and tomorrow and the future days out. But for the next 90 days, I think it's going to run some of our cattle producers out of business.
77% of ranchers and farmers voted for Trump. 77%. And now they're online complaining and asking the question, what's going on with the president? Have you guys seen some of the videos? Well, all I got to say is, I don't know what to tell you. I don't know what to tell you. You made your choice. People tried to warn you, and didn't want to listen. So guess what? You made your bed. You're gonna have to lie in it. We're all gonna have to suffer and go through. It is what it is. Talk to you guys tomorrow.
US cattle ranchers are fucking around and find out. They are facing full fuffle because of Trump's insane act. Trump is going to import beef from other countries to US. That means the beef in the US is going to be cheap. That means the ranchers are going to lose everything. They are going to become bankrupt. Remember, tariffs affected them. War in Iran. To buy fertilizer, it's very, very expensive. Everything has skyrocketed. And right now, he's saying that instead of buying American beef, is going to import the beef from outside.
President Trump has really got to think about it. Who put him in office? The American rancher, the rural farmer, by a widespread margin, voted for President Trump. And I really think he needs to listen to him.
Now, the only price we have that's high is beef, and we'll get that down. Now, one of the things we're thinking about doing is beef from Argentina.
Some farmers are calling the move a betrayal of the American rancher.
The traders on the market use it as an excuse to drive the feeder cattle board down and live cattle board down. What that did essentially is it trickled back into the local auction markets. It took billions of dollars out of the hands, out of the pockets of the cow-calf producers in the United States. Speaking for us personally, it cost us a couple $100,000 in valuations.
Looks like we've lost around $200 a head in value. That would be around a $17 billion hit. This is at a time when these producers were getting close to being profitable after decades of losing money and losing equity.
It's the first time they've made money in a long time. It's the first time they've been in the black. And to have that rug pulled out from under them while they're getting their loans paid down and everything else is a pretty tough blow for them.
One thing President Trump is admitting to is the high price of beef. And he just posted, I've asked the DOJ to immediately begin an investigation into the meatpacking companies who are driving up the price of beef through illicit collusion.
Doesn't this sound like we're in 2023, 2024, when Joe Biden was talking about exactly the same thing?
I think everybody needs to understand that the cattle industry and the beef industry are two separate things. And the big packers that control the beef industry, they set the price really, and they are driving this with their imports.
They have all the controlling contracts with the Walmarts, the Safeways. So when you get an independent producer trying to sell meat to one of those places, they can't get into that marketplace.
They'll force the little guy to leverage themselves to.
Now farmers meltdown, in the total meltdown. Farmers are furious. Farmers are crying. They are regretting why they voted for Donald J. Trump. This is what is happening. They are saying enough is enough. They are tired. Even the bailout didn't reach. Remember, Trump bailed out Argentina farmers instead of US farmers. Watch this.
Here in Missouri, we were proud to vote for President Trump, but now we're definitely regretting it. Last year under Biden, we got approved for a $250,000 cost-sharing contract with the Department of Agriculture to improve our water systems on our 300-acre cattle farm. It's beneficial to both parties because we get a break on the cost of labor and construction putting these new pipes in, and the general population gets healthier cattle, healthier beef, etc. So basically, we front all the costs for the labor and construction, and then they reimburse us. But in January and now in this month, Trump's put all these executive orders to freeze all these contracts. So we've already fronted over $100,000 getting these new pipes in, and now we're not going to get reimbursed. If we call and ask, they say they don't know when the funds are going to be there or if they're going to be there at all. I couldn't believe that Trump would do this to us. We've always supported him. But then my friend sent me an article on what he used to do as a real estate mogul in New York, and apparently he didn't pay companies all the time that he did business with. So I don't know if this is ever going to get solved. We can't afford it. I don't know what we're going to do.
To all the cattle ranchers out there who fucked around and now they're finding out, I'm going to give you the same advice you give women trying to leave an abusive relationship. You should have picked better.
You know, cattle, beef prices, they're going to import a bunch more box beef, ground beef, scrap cuts, is what I call them, and hopefully bring down the price of ground beef in the store for y'all. We've seen a market crash for live cattle that people like myself grow and take to the processing plants or go down through the system. That's dropped 40 cents a pound already just from that plant closure. Now this morning, the markets are crashing. But will your price change? So far, we have not seen that. We have not seen that. And at what expense to you? I'll tell you what expense to you. This is the opposite of what needs to happen. We're not going to retain heifers and build a herd when we can have, the stroke of a pen drop our price to where we don't make a profit anymore. And honestly, that's where we stand. We finally begun to make a profit and all hell breaks loose. People can't handle it. I guess, because beef is high in the store. I get it. Beef is high in the store. Look at what else is high in the store. Look at what's high for the rancher and the producer. Fuel, land, labor, all of it. You got a $9 latte, but $7, $8, $9 a pound for ground beef is too much, right? Now you're going to get stuck with shitty ground beef. Trust me. And we won't rebuild the herd, and you're going to lose more ranchers, and in the long run, you're going to lose everything. Because where there are cattle, there is freedom. And when these disappear, so does your freedom. I don't think this is going to work out like they hoped.
I understand why you're angry. Everybody in this country should be angry about what is happening to family farms. The problem is you're acting like this happened by accident when you and 2/3 of rural America voted for these exact policies. The exact trade wars, the exact economic agenda that this exact administration has brought directly to your doorstep. Because he has now paused the trade war that he created to waive 300,000 metric tons of foreign beef to enter the market, crashing cattle futures. Another way to say it is that you, an American farmer, is now left holding the bag and being harmed even further.
We've seen a market crash for live cattle that people like myself grow and take to the processing plants or go down through the system. That's dropped 40 cents a pound already just from that plant closure.
Why does one giant corporation like Tyson closing one processing plant threaten to destroy your entire livelihood overnight? Because these four multinational conglomerates control 80% of all U.S. beef processing. I think it's time for more people to understand that every single time conservative platforms block antitrust enforcement, gut regulatory oversight, and kill protections under the Packers and Stockyards Act, they hand complete monopoly power to the meat packers. You voted for all of this deregulation. And when there are no competing buyers, you take whatever loss they decide to hand you.
We're not going to retain heifers and build a herd when we can have, the stroke of a pen drop our price to where we don't make a profit.
This isn't new. This has been the exact playbook across both terms of this administration. Just in his first term alone, this trade war cost U.S. farmers $27 billion in profits. Farmer Chapter 12 bankruptcy spiked and reached an all-time high by 2019. And between 2017 and 2024, this country lost 160,000 American farms. And to paper over that damage, the American taxpayer funded $10 billion in farmer bailouts, but most of those bailouts went to mega farms and agribusinesses.
I get it. Beef is high in the store. Look at what else is high in the store. Look at what's high for the rancher and the producer. Fuel, land, labor, all of it.
Again, this goes back to the tariffs and the trade wars brought on by this administration. Those tariffs affect all of us.
You got a $9 latte, but $7, $8, $9 a pound for ground beef is too much, right? And see, that's pure deflection. Blaming consumers and working families for buying a coffee on their way to work is not the flex you think it is. Working families are trying to survive in an economy where housing, fuel, and grocery prices are breaking them, and God forbid they spend $9 on a coffee that maybe makes their day a little bit better. I think you need to remember these working families and consumers, we are not the ones setting beef prices. Because where there are cattle, there is freedom. And when these disappear, so does your freedom. Where there are cattle, there is freedom. You know, patriotic slogans don't pay your feed bill. But you need to remember, we consumers are not your enemy. And a lot of us voted for your farms. A lot of us voted to help your farms, and you didn't. Those votes are why we are where we are right now with farms and everything else.
Watch this.
American farmers and ranchers voted overwhelmingly for Donald Trump, believing he was their savior. In reality, the past year has been a fucking disaster, and the rest of us are bailing them out. American farmers lost $35 billion last year to Trump's soybean trade war with China. They're paying extra for heavily tariffed new tractors. They're filing for bankruptcy up 70% this year due to the global supply of fertilizer being shanked by the Iran war closing the Strait of Hormuz. American ranchers were first undercut back in February by Trump's plan to import 80,000 tons of tariff-free cheap Argentinian beef. Now this week, Trump has announced he's importing 300,000 tons of tariff-waived cheap foreign beef. That does suck for them. For the rest of us, it means bailing them out of what they voted for. So far, Republicans have awarded over $12 billion in bailouts to farmers and ranchers hurt by Trump's tariffs and war this year. And pending right now on the table is a second $11 billion handout for the damage still being done. In the 444 counties the USDA designates as farming dependent, Trump won 433 of them. There's a couple problems here. First, too many rural Americans vote for their cultural grievances, which we are then forced to subsidize when they end up not being able to put food on the table. One of those things has to stop. The other problem is rural Americans simply have more representation in the federal government thanks to the structure of the Senate and the Electoral College. A voter's vote in Wyoming, likely for a Republican agenda, carries multiples more power than a voter's vote, say, in Massachusetts, likely against that agenda. To just start on that, the filibuster has to be abolished along with the Electoral College.
Nowadays, my FYP is absolutely flooded with ranchers, cattle ranchers, like selling beef direct to the consumer. You order it directly from them. Like you order a half a cow and they butcher it how you want it. They pack it up, they mail it to you. And my FYP is also flooded with ranchers who are talking about the betrayal of the Trump administration in bringing in $660 million or 660 million pounds of beef in whatever form from foreign countries, undercutting the market by 25%. The tariff on beef is 26%. And how Trump is completely screwing cattle ranchers. And two, I had a couple of observations on this. One, as far as the FYP shown me all these direct-to-consumer ranchers that are selling their beef direct to consumers. Like I started seeing those, and the first thing that popped into my head, it's like, oh, there's the benefit of a friend of Donald Trump's owning a controlling interest in TikTok, Larry Ellison. Trump calls him up, says, hey man, you know, these cattle farmers are hurting and they're trying to sell direct to consumer. Can you push that content out? Because I've never watched that content before. I've never sought out that kind of content before. I love beef in all of its forms, but my FYP is flooded with that now. It was curious to me that I was also getting so many of the other kind of ranchers and cattle farmers, like speaking about the damage that is going to be done to their businesses and their farms and their herds by this policy of importing all of this beef. 85%. 85% of ranchers and cattle farmers voted for Donald Trump in 2024. And it's probably close to 85% of them voted for Donald Trump in all three elections. during Donald Trump's first term, again, with tariffs and the government interfering in markets, socialism, and negatively impacting farms and farmers, again, almost all of whom voted for Donald Trump. During Donald Trump's first term, he cratered the markets for soybeans. He cratered the markets for corn, and all kinds of other things, and had to bail out American farmers. Socialism. They just got a big fat fucking check from the government, our tax dollars, because Donald Trump had his policies that had such a negative impact on their businesses that they were all going to go bankrupt if Donald Trump didn't bail them out. And so he bailed them out after he drove almost all of them into bankruptcy. So what did they do in 2020? They all voted for him again. And he lost. And I'm sure there were more than a few farmers and ranchers who were at the Capitol on January 6, 2021, because they believed his fucking lies about the 2020 election. And then what did they do in 2024? 85% of them voted for him for a third time. And he got reelected. And here we are. Look what his tariffs have done to corn and soybean farmers. And now this bullshit with beef and ranchers. And he's destroying their businesses. He's destroying their farms. When I voted...
Have you seen the cattle ranchers ranting? This one is a doozy, and tell me what you notice.
So I just cannot believe the hate that just keeps piling on to my TikToks, talking about the struggles of farmers, financially, mentally. And all it is, but who did you vote for? But who did you vote for? Well, I can guarantee you from now on, I would never, ever vote for a Democrat, liberal, socialist, communist, ever in my life. If this is the way I would ever be treated by people that vote this way. I love my farm. I'm going to continue to talk about farm policy and things that are impacting farming. I don't talk about politicians, but maybe I will, because I feel like I've been kind of pushed to it. But that's not what I want to do. I want to let everybody know what's going on in the agriculture industry and how we really need to say...
If you start to feel a little sorry for them, don't. She will never vote Democrat again. She calls us communists because we didn't want this for farmers, because we read Project 2025 and we know what he did to them in the first term and starting at the very beginning of his second term. If you're starting to feel sorry for them, I don't want you to. I want to tell you, unfortunately, we are going to need people to learn the most severest lessons that are going to impact them in order to make changes. He ran Republican because he said they're dumb. And there's a difference between being dumb and ignorant. Ignorant means you have the capability of educating yourself, but you don't. If they maybe just turned off Fox News and listened to experts and different sources, but don't feel sorry for them. A lot of them are going to go all the way to the bottom, and unfortunately, that's what they need. There's nothing that you can do to change their mind.
Did you hear the president tell cattle ranchers that they've never had it better? Trump posted this on Truth Social. The cattle ranchers, who I love, don't understand that the only reason they're doing so well, for the first time in decades, is because I, Trump, put tariffs on cattle coming into the United States. He added, if it weren't for me, they would be doing just as they've done for the past 20 years. Terrible. So that's the claim. Ranchers across the United States are thriving, and it's because of Trump's tariffs. So let's check that against what actually happened, right? Because sometimes we know politicians can fib a little bit, to put it lightly. So let's go through the timeline. The U.S. cattle herd is at its smallest size in roughly 75 years. Drought, rising costs, and a screwworm outbreak that shut down cattle imports from Mexico all squeezed the supply. Fewer cattle means ranchers can charge more per head. That's the doing well part, right, that he's talking about. But rebuilding a herd takes about 2 years. It's a breeding cycle. not a switch of the flip, right? So even as prices rose for ranchers, which was good for them, many held back on expanding even though they had some more income, some more cash flow. Because the same tariffs driving up equipment and feed costs made rebuilding too expensive. There's too many tariffs. In October of 2025, Trump announced plans to quadruple beef imports from Argentina to bring consumer prices down, right? Because with less cattle means prices are high. You don't want that in your grocery store. But the National Cattlemen's Beef Association pushed back right away. Republican Senator Deb Fischer of Nebraska said the move would hurt ranchers who were, in her words, just getting ahead or simply breaking even. And then we move forward a little bit. Like this story isn't over. By May 2026, the administration floated something way bigger than that idea, suspending tariffs on beef from every major exporting country for 200 days. Again, because beef was too high at the grocery store. But ranch groups pushed back hard enough that the White House delayed it. Then we moved to February, and this administration signed a narrower version instead, again, because people are saying prices for beef are too high. An extra 80,000 metric tons of tariff-free beef trimmings from Argentina per year. Okay. Cattle didn't like it, but they didn't push back against it. But then by August, Tyson closed 2 more beef plants in Illinois and Utah, laying off around 3,200 workers combined. The company cited the same historic cattle shortage. We don't have enough cattle. And this week, right after a swing through Iowa, Trump announced the big one, 300,000 metric tons of ground beef allowed into the country tariff-free for the next 90 days, with a commitment to sell it 25% below current market price. That sounds great for your grocery bill in the store, right? But again, so here's where we land, because it's getting confusing. Cattle prices paid to ranchers went up because of scarcity, not policy. Consumer prices went up too, right? Because fewer cattle, less beef, means no matter who profits from the sale, it's still increase in price. And now the answer to high consumer prices is more imports, which
So I'm in Argentina, in cattle country, a couple hours outside Buenos Aires. I'm at a small ranch, which is actually a breeding operation. They help other bigger ranches improve the genetic stock of their cattle. And I interviewed the owner of this operation, whose name is Martin Vivanco, and he said that he's thrilled about the idea of the U.S. dramatically increasing imports of Argentinian beef, which is something Donald Trump has said he wants to do. Martin said that that would be really good for business and that Argentinian beef producers have for a long time aspired to a bigger share of the American market. He also said something else interesting, which is that the beef that's produced here that goes back to the States is not generally mass market stuff that winds up on supermarket shelves. It's really high quality cuts that go to restaurants and caterers, hotels, high-end buyers. And that's because the beef here is just really high quality. It's all like this, like what you see behind me, free range, grass fed. The conditions here are perfect for raising really high quality cattle. So it's not likely that these increased exports from here to the US are actually going to really help the American consumer that much. They'll definitely help Argentinian cattle ranchers and exporters. On the other hand, U.S. cattle ranchers are very much not happy about this idea, and my colleague Rosa Flores has been talking to some of them in Nebraska.
I'm Rosa Flores in Hershey, Nebraska. I spoke with 5 cattle ranchers in this area. They're all Republican. They all support President Donald Trump, and they say that they support a lot of his policies. They believe in America first, but they say that they don't agree with the president on everything. In fact, if I were to summarize all the conversations I had into one message from these cattle ranchers, I would say that they believe that the federal government should stay out of their business. They believe in free enterprise.
I agree with him on a lot of his issues, but on this issue, I would disagree with trying to, obviously do anything to lower the price of beef to the beef producers. On the other side of it, you would like to see, a cheaper food supply for the consumer, but not necessarily at the expense of the producer.
So in essence, President Trump don't interfere in the market?
Well, we don't. We appreciate all he does, but being in the market is probably not something we're very anxious to have the government in.
Some Republican lawmakers use the words strongly concerned to describe this move by the president. There's a rancher in Wyoming who used the word betrayed. The ranchers that I talked to here in Nebraska say that's too strong of a word. They say they would use disagreement. They say they don't have beef with the president. They just disagree with him on this.
Do you think this is the right time to blame these cattle ranchers? Because 80% voted for Donald J. Trump, and right now they are suffering. It doesn't care about them. It doesn't even remember what it promised them.
So I live in an ultra-conservative MAGA community. I was raised to be ultra-conservative and MAGA, but our community was actually built on cattle ranchers. And yes, every single one of these cattle ranchers in my community have been diehard MAGA. So I want to read the letter that Trump wrote to them. To the cattle ranchers, who I love that I was able to hoodwink for their vote. They are too stupid to understand that the only reason that they could possibly have any success is because I, Donald J. Trump, taxed them and their consumers with the tariffs that I placed on foreign nations. In fact, if it weren't for me, they would have to go back to doing whatever it is that they were doing before the days of cattle ranching. But it would be nice if they understood that. But these cattle ranchers need to get their prices down, because the truth is, I never cared about America first or the American farmer. If you don't believe me, just look what I did to the soybean market. I just sent $40 billion to Argentina to influence their elections. So that's why you, the American farmer, cannot have health care. And to the National Cattlemen's Beef Association, I read your response about how you cannot stand behind me. Well, I warned you, all you had to do was vote for me this one time, and that would be it. So thank you.
Did Trump supporting American ranchers get a bum steer? Yes, in more ways than one. Flapsteak in Chief Don Trump announced that 300,000 tons of ground meat would be allowed in from foreign lands without tariffs to be sold at 25% below market price. It's almost like he realizes the tariffs raise the prices for American consumers. Almost. But American ranchers are furious because, although they love the racism and the misogyny, the current high prices are the only way they can try to get even from all the damage Trump's already caused them. Inflated fuel costs from his war of choice against Iranian schoolgirls, inflated feed costs caused by that same war and by his foolish tariffs, the lack of pasture from climate change that he's worsening with his environmental recklessness, and the cost of battling cattle screwworm, again, made worse by Trump and his buck-toothed pork belly, Elon Musk. So now ranchers lose again. Unless Trump eats those 300,000 tons of ground beef himself, maybe with help from White House angry hippo Stephen Chung. That seems unlikely, though, since much of the meat Trump previously let in from places like Argentina is more likely to be tainted, like a recent recall of 30,000 pounds of beef. Some of this stuff can make you sicker than a letter from Natalie Harp. Worse, Trump refuses to say where this meat's even coming from. Perhaps in a coincidence, his government also this week allowed for the capture of 3,700 wild horses to be illegally sold for slaughter by foreign slaughterhouses. When asked if he could say the origin of this mystery meat he's now allowing into our country, he said, "Nay." So who really knows what this below-cost meat will be and what it might do to you? It's possible that if you eat it and your throat hurts, you might feel a little hoarse. How long can this newscast keep making terrible horse puns? Not for long. We'll try to rein it in. Please comment below, like and share, and subscribe to the YouTube channel.
You remember a few days ago when I said that Donald Trump was undermining cattle ranchers and farmers in this country because he said that in order to combat the rising price of beef, he's now going to import 300,000 metric tons of beef tariff-free from other countries? Well, the cattle ranchers in this country are now calling him out for his bullshit. The National Cattlemen's Beef Association said today's announcement is not about helping producers. It's not about putting their finger on the scale for one cattle industry group or another. It's 100% about the 74 days between now and the midterm elections. And they are spot on with that. Donald Trump is attempting to slightly help lower the price of beef in order to not piss off more voters, when all he's actually doing is pissing off all of the cattle ranchers and the farmers. Because importing hundreds of thousands of tons of beef from other countries, tariff-free, just says that you're not going to care about what the producers here in the United States are making. Once again, they're not going to be able to sell their beef. You're just over-flooding the market with stuff that's not American-made. And this is what Republicans always do by outsourcing cheap labor from overseas. They say the U.S. farmers and ranchers need stability. They don't want spur-of-the-moment trading decisions made by White House social media posts. And they posted on Twitter that the cattle producers in this country are not asking for increased imports. Undercutting American farmers and ranchers with inferior product from foreign competitors does nothing to create market confidence or encourage rebuilding the herd. In other words, Donald Trump fucked up the beef industry with his stupid tariffs, which he's still doing more of on Canada now, and he thinks the way to fix it is to piss off all of our American farmers by just buying beef from someplace else at a cheaper price.
For y'all who don't get it, this is just a bass-ackwards way of saying, okay, your product right now is worth a lot of money. There is a small supply, aka beef. So we're going to flood the market with cheap beef so that your product becomes worth less. So you have to keep your product that is worth less to build your herd. Very confusing how it's helpful here, Mr. Trump. I get...
Anyway, tell me what you think down in the comment, and thank you for watching the mighty Great Minds Black. See you in the next video. One love.
Thank you for watching Great Minds Blacks.